A very good morning to one and all. Thank you for watching our previous videos, this Nerdy Scientist YouTube channel, and we are here with some more new stuff and a very important update on coronavirus. And this COVID-19 has actually brought out a lot of research industries into a chaos and debacle, and a lot of discussions and arguments have been going on continuously throughout the process of finding out a new vaccine or a new drug. It is really very much important at this point of time, and it's a very important point of concern to each and every scientist who is actually interested in science and to prevent this kind of deadly action of COVID-19. So at this point of time, we are getting a news on the blood clot, and the mystery on this is actually being complicated since this process has started, and the Nature Research Journal has actually started a new channel, completely a new channel for coronavirus. And now we are looking on to the very important point of coronavirus blood clot mystery, and it is actually published in the month of May, and it's 8th May, so you could understand the preprint has been released in the month of May, and you could see it is the latest update from Nature, and we are going to discuss about it, and we're going to analyze it, and maybe we may get few questions during this process. Let's try to find answers to it. So let's begin the show. So this coronavirus blood clot mystery has actually got intensified during the process of this research, and research begins to pick apart the mechanisms behind a deadly COVID-19 complication. So researchers have actually thought of picking differences in the mechanisms which are actually being used in the COVID-19 treatment process, and now we're going to discuss more about the process in which these blood clots are occurring. So purple rashes, swollen legs, clogged catheters, sudden deaths, the blood clots and large and small are a very frequent complication of COVID-19, and researchers are just beginning to untangle why. What is the reason for these all symptoms to occur in the COVID-19 patients? What is the reason these symptoms are being shown by the COVID-19 patients throughout the world? So for weeks, reports have actually been poured out of the disease effects throughout the body, and many of which are caused by the clots. So this is like a storm of blood clots. That's what the Ben Hood Bitkeley, a fourth-year cardiology research fellow at Columbia University, New York, has actually stated to be is a storm of blood clots in the body of a COVID-19 patient. So anyone with a severe illness is at high risk of developing blood clots, but hospitalized patients with COVID-19 appear to be more susceptible. So why are they becoming more susceptible? What is the reason to actually how this viral infection is related to blood clots? Let's see the answers. So studies from Netherlands and France actually suggest that the clots appear in 20% to 30% of critically ill COVID-19 patients. So you could see the proportion. It is actually ranging from 20 to 30%. So it's around one fourth, almost more than one fourth of the COVID-19 patients are actually showing symptoms of blood clots in the case studies of Netherlands and France concerned. So scientists have a few plausible hypotheses to explain the phenomena, and they are just beginning to launch studies which are actually aimed at gaining mechanism insights. So once we get to know about the mechanism of action of the virus and how these blood clots are being formed in the COVID-19 patients, we can get to know more about how to deal with it. So without knowing about mechanism, you can't actually start off talking about the treatment or to prevent that kind of action which is actually occurring in our body. So, but with that death toll actually rising, they are also scrambling to test clot curbing medications. So there are various kind of medications which are being used for the COVID-19 patients to actually treat them. Various combinations you could see in the news if you could actually follow the news, the world news, not the Indian news. You could see there are various combinations of drugs, antiviral drugs, which are being used in the process of the treatment of COVID-19 patients. So this scrambling of test clot curbing medications is actually happening right now, but that toll is not stopping. So Double whammy. What is this about? Blood clots, jelly like clumps of cells and proteins, are the body's mechanism to stop bleeding. How can you stop bleeding? With the help of cells and proteins. So some researchers view clotting as a key feature of COVID-19. Why it is a key feature? But it's just not just their presence that has scientists puzzled. It's how they shown up, how they got showed up in the, suddenly in the COVID-19 patients. That is what is the main question. How this actually blood clots are suddenly getting formed. So there are so many things about the presentations that are a little bit unusual. So that is what James O'Donnell, director of the Irish Centre for Vascular Biology, Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin, has actually explained about. So the blood thinners don't reliably prevent clotting in people with COVID-19, and young people are dying of strokes caused by the blockages in the brain, and many people in hospital have drastically elevated levels of protein fragment called D-dimer. This protein fragment is also very much involved in the process of COVID-19 infection, which is actually generated when a clot actually dissolves. So this D protein, D dimer, is actually being originated when the clot dissolves. So high levels of D dimer appear to be a powerful predictor of mortality in hospitalized patients infected with coronavirus. So there is high level of this D dimer present, and it is actually helping to detect the infected patients with coronavirus. So researchers have also observed miniature clots in the body's smallest vessels. You could actually imagine the smallest vessels. So these miniature clots are going so deep that the smallest vessels are also being attacked. So Jeffrey Lawrence, a hematologist at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York, has actually and his colleagues examined lung and skin samples from 3 people infected with COVID-19 and found that the capillaries were clogged with clots. They were all dealt with clots. Other groups, including the team led by O'Donnell, have reported the similar findings. So you could see the similarities in the various research studies which are actually happening all over the world are coming up to a certain point where they are actually concluding that the clots are actually being formed in the COVID-19 patients. This is not what you would expect to see in someone who just have severe infection. So this is really very new because no other disease actually causes blood clots, which is very very serious and new kind of a symptom where people are actually trying to understand. This might help to explain why some people have critically low blood oxygen readings and why mechanical ventilation often doesn't help. That's also a very important factor. It's a blood double hit to a COVID-19 patient, and this is exactly what happens. Complete double hit, and what happens is the complete immune system goes down. Pneumonia clogs the tiny sacs in the lungs with fluid or pus, and microclots restrict oxygenated blood from moving through them. So this microclots are actually being formed to restrict the oxygenated blood from moving through the process, through the vessels. That's really very very important to understand. So the next point is the viral impacts, how the virus is getting impacting. So why this clotting occurs is still a mystery. That's what is the point. One possibility is that one of the possibilities which is related to the studies is that it is that the SARS-CoV-2 is directly attacking the endothelial cells that line the blood vessels. Endothelial cells harbor the same angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor that the virus uses to enter the lung cells. And there is evidence that endothelial cells can become infected. So, this is a very serious discussion, and you could see is endothelial cells, if they get infected, ACE2 receptor will get infected, and we could actually, this virus can use it as a pathway to get into the cell, any kind of cell. So in a healthy individual, the blood vessel is a very smoothly lined pipe. So the lining actively stops clots from forming, but viral infection can damage these cells, prompting them to churn out proteins that trigger this process. So you can actually remove these proteins that are actually triggering the process by actually, due to the viral infection, the cells get damaged, and thereby you could see the proteins get separated, and what happens is the process is triggered and there's a lot of infection due to virus going out in the body. The virus effect on the immune system could also affect clotting. In some people, COVID 19 prompts immune cells to release a torrent of chemical signals that ramps up inflammation in our body, which is actually linked to the coagulation and clotting through a variety of pathways. The various pathways are actually linked with this linking of coagulation and clotting with. So, and the virus appears to activate the complement system. Is actually a defense mechanism that actually sparks clotting. That's how clotting starts off, according to the scientists, according to the studies. Okay, and the virus appears to activate the complement system. The defense mechanism actually sparks clotting. So there is, everything is linked here. Everything is connected to each another. So Lawrence group found that the small clogged vessels in lung and skin tissue from people with COVID-19 were studded with complement proteins. All these systems, complement, inflammation, coagulation, are interrelated. As I said, they're all connected. So the director of hematology research program has stated this line, and she also did say that in some patients with COVID-19, all of the systems are a kind of in a hyperdrive. They're in a state of hyperdrive. They're actually in a very active state, you could see. And in the process, you could see the complete immune system will be damaged, the organ systems will completely get infected, and finally death of a patient would happen. So, but Lee adds that there could be other factors at play that aren't specific to COVID-19. People with disease who become hospitalized typically have a number of risk factors for clotting. They might be elderly or overweight and could have high blood pressure or diabetes. They show up with high fevers, and because they are seriously ill, they have probably been immobilized. They might have a genetic predisposition to clotting or be taking medications that increase the risk factor towards COVID-19. It's kind of like a perfect storm. That's how they actually can correlate COVID-19 with. You could see how dangerous COVID-19 can prove to a patient. That's how a COVID-19 can affect the person completely. It could be elderly or overweight, it could be obese patient. They show up high fevers and they very much seriously get ill, completely immobilization, paralyzing of the whole body may happen if the clots actually occur. It's definitely more aggressive than a perfect storm. It's actually ruining the whole body. So yeah, it's very dangerous. That's what we would actually conclude with all these things. So now about the new therapies which could actually be developed to fight against this kind of infection. So even as researchers begin to unravel how clotting occurs in people with COVID-19, they are sprinting to test new therapies which are actually aiming at preventing and busting clots. Blood thinning medications are standard of care for patients in the intensive care unit, and those with COVID-19 are no exception, right? So it could be in the intensive care unit, but those with COVID-19 are no exception to this process. But dosing is a matter of hot debate. The question is now, how aggressive should you be? How aggressive you could actually act? That is what is the point of time in this kind of situation. So researchers from Mount Sinai School of Medicine, also in New York City, reported that the hospitalized patients with COVID-19 on mechanical ventilation who received blood thinners had lower mortality than those who were not treated with them. You just imagine how we are actually comparing things with. So there are a few hospitalized patients who are suffering with COVID-19 who are on mechanical ventilation and they received blood thinners. They had a lower mortality than those who were not treated with them. So just imagine, the usage of blood thinners had actually shown a very low mortality rate compared to those on whom we are not actually administering blood thinners. So, but the team could not rule out other explanations for the observations. So, and high dose of these drugs may carry risks. We don't know that. We need to do further research on it. so that we can conclude about these drugs and how, at what level this can be used for the treatment of COVID-19, and how can we reduce the mortality rate and actually bring them out safe and healthy. So at Columbia University in New York City, researchers are launching a clinical trial to compare the standard clot preventing doses of blood thinners with a higher dose in people who are critically ill with COVID-19. A very important uh, breakthrough this is. You could see they are launching a clinical trial to compare the standard clot preventing doses of blood thinner and with a higher dose of people who are critically ill with COVID-19. So depending on the stage in which the patient is, we can actually give them the dosage which is actually required to them. So similar trials are planned for Canada and Switzerland. They're going to come up very soon, and we will also discuss about those clinical trials once it comes up in Nature. So, and scientists at Beth Israel Medical Center have begun enrollment for a clinical trial to evaluate an even more powerful clot busting medication called tissue plasmogen activator, or TPA in short form it is also called as. So this drug is more potent but carries higher risks of serious bleeding than do blood thinners. So there is a disadvantage of serious bleeding with this tissue plasmogen activator, but it's a very valuable resource to actually prevent clots. It's a very powerful clot busting medication, as they mentioned. So scientists hope that these trials and others will provide the data necessary to help physicians to make difficult treatment decisions. Lee actually worries about the amount of reactionary medicine happening. So the professor is very much worried, you could see, about the reactionary medicine happening, the reactions are actually coming out because of the usage of medicine. We don't know at what dosage form we need to do. That is the reason why I feel that this reactionary medicine is happening. It's all experimentation, guys. We don't know. It's completely new for us. So we need to try new things to it so that we get to know what is actually happening in our body and how the body is reacting to that kind of drug when it is infected with COVID-19. So people are changing their therapeutic approach in reaction to their local and personal experience. So based upon their food habits, based upon their surrounding environment, based upon the physical conditions, physical fitness in their based upon the health status they were in and they are in. So all these factors come up, and actually based on this we actually try to implement this reactionary medicine concept. So she understands the impetus, but we have to remember the main thing is first, do not harm. So we cannot harm the patients at this point of time. So that's what this article is explaining about. So we come to an end of this topic, and we actually discussed about various important facts about the blood clots and how new researchers have actually starting new experimentations on the various drugs, and various combinations can be implemented. I feel that remdesivir can be combined with these kind of explanations, as you said about the TPA, the tissue plasminogen activator. You can actually use this as a combination with remdesivir and try out whether you can actually prevent the death rate, or you could actually bring out the patient very fast. So there are a lot of more studies which are actually going to come up, and we have to analyze things and try to recombine all these drugs, all these factors in one state, and we have to try different combinations of these drugs so that we can actually prevent this COVID-19 infection completely, in a complete sense. So just try to listen to all the videos and come up with your ideas. The latest videos we actually posted about the COVID-19. If you could actually do that, you will understand the relation between each and every topic. That's the reason why we are doing it in a series. So it's important that you go through all the topics here, and you could see the link here. You could go forward and read the article if you want, and go forward to read complete papers on COVID-19. There are a lot of papers coming up in elsewhere, Nature and various other reputed journals. So go forward and read those topics, understand them, analyze them, evaluate them, so that you understand how this COVID-19 is actually acting on a human body, and how it is infecting, how it is spreading, in what ways it is actually creating havoc in the human body. So I hope you got to know some new things and you actually got to know new innovations, new studies, and I will join you again in the next very interesting video like this. Till then, be safe, be healthy, protect yourself, your family. Do follow the rules regulated by the government of India during this lockdown stage. I hope this completely goes down very soon. Yeah, thank you. Bye. Stay tuned. Do follow and subscribe our YouTube channel. Bye.